So yes, Nicola is now presenting, and the title of her presentation is Tommy Proops Died, Transcription and Transmutation in the Processing of Trauma. Are you okay with sharing your screen?
Yes, can you see that, and is it nice and big?
Yes. Let's
okay.
Sorry. Yeah, it is nice and big.
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We're perfectly paired. So what a brilliant start off. That was such a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Susan. Or Sue, I'm sorry, I can't remember which. I am Nicola Field. I'm a PGR in the Murdered Humanities Department. I'm now 2/3 through my practice-led research on the poetics and politics of complex trauma within the family. And using artistic witnessing, autoethnography, autotheory, I engage from a Marxist perspective with the contested clinical category of complex post-traumatic stress, CPTSD, which I argue is endemic to the institution of the family under capitalism. And my materials come from my own life growing up in Southeast England in the 1960s and 70s. Lately, I've been working with spontaneous conversations with my 96-year-old father, who has Alzheimer's. That's him and me in 1963. His memory and word finding are impaired, and his wife is his carer. And I use these notes that I make during the conversations as raw material for transcription, creative inscription, drawing, and reflection. And what emerges feels like revelation, insight, and historical haunting. And at the end, I hope to have time to show you some creative erasure work and a slideshow poem, and hope to hear your thoughts on what's being produced through this process. So this short presentation shares an example, my father's reflections on the recent funeral of his childhood friend, Tommy Proops. And their shared history began in 1994 when they became on the brand new St Helier estate in Carshalton, built on former lavender fields to rehouse slum dwellers of South London. And here you can see the new homes being built and the terraces, how they're laid out. They're actually 9,000 homes on the estate. And my dad and his eldest sister outside their house around 1938. So the Fields and the Proops families helped one another dig bunkers for their Anderson shelters and went through the heavy bombing together. Dad and Tommy joined the Naval Cadets and the RAF and were shop stewards in the instrument mechanics workshop at London Airport. And Tommy was slightly older, so he went first each time. Now, my relationship with my dad is an uneasy synthesis of affection and distance. Our bodies bear similar shapes. We share sneezing patterns and language rhythms, but there is a sense of long lost closeness, broken connection and divergence. I have late diagnosed autism and I privately see traits in him too, but we've never discussed it and it's never been raised. I was sort of reared as his mini-me, a kind of alchemical homunculus groomed to reflect and affirm his image and not challenge it. And so I'm a kind of feral changeling, visibly part of the Field family, but through historical and social development, I've become alien and uncanny and queer. And Dad says nowadays, you know, he's quite limited in his words. He says, I'm your dad and you're my eldest daughter. And this is like the vestiges of his belief that he should be the boss of me. My difference and not being or having or doing anything that's recognizable to him is a sort of disappointment, even an anathema to him, and it's a failing in me. So in the attempt to formalize this work by sort of asking him to sign a release form or something, would collapse the immediacy and trust because he wouldn't understand what it was. So I adopt a practice of effective consent and artistic witnessing, grounded in a commitment to do no harm and to honour the dialectics of working class experience by engaging with all my artistic, political and scholarly affinities. It's a delicate set of responsibilities to balance, and I constantly question myself through very intense reflective practice. And this practice of transmutation and inscription may contribute to what Meg Jensen in her 2019 book, The Art and Science of Trauma and the Autobiographical, calls the negotiation of truth in trauma-focused autoethnographic work. So here are my notes from the conversation about Tommy Proops, and don't worry too much about trying to read them. The gaps are where I couldn't keep up or where words were lost, and I hope to return to unearth more, but it's impossible. My role is bound up in my positions as researcher, creative practitioner, activist, and daughter. He sits in his recliner and I'm beside him on the sofa. I have to turn to see him and I break eye contact with the page and then break eye contact with him. He can't turn to face me. He's speaking to himself, but with the knowledge that I'm witnessing. And his wife, silently listening since 1979, is always present. This is the transcription, and Dad's using facts and incidents as vehicles for emotion. And the notes are kind of diagrammatic, mapped thought process rather than a transcript. What I capture is a kind of drafted storytelling, sequential but open and shaped by my intuitive witnessing. There's confusion, but there's also striking clarity and the rhythm. And his storytelling throws stones into a pool, as I feel it, fragmented yet patterned. It strays but returns. It's always integrated. And I'm impressed, even envious, because his storytelling lives in me. But I'm drawn to the gaps and the missed beats. And this is a way of connecting with him through narrative empathy in a relationship that's otherwise constrained. He knows I'm writing and witnessing, and he trusts that process, perhaps because he's always been proud that I like reading, writing, and pictures. A little bit about my methodology. So I'm building on the work of Bessel van der Kolk and Judith Herman. I aim to substantiate this disputed category, really, of complex PTSD, which is often trauma arising from war, systematic repeated harms such as domestic violence, abuse, structural oppression. These are experiences we're told to forget, to forgive, keep secret, not be so sensitive about, and that things that provoke rage or terror that must not be expressed. We live collectively and yet isolated with the unspeakable in the sort of neoliberal ideologies of resilience and individualization. And this we carry in our brains and bodies. So those are my notes crossed out. And the trauma, so what I'm going to talk about is this process now of inscription. So the trauma body creates a body of trauma work, which is slippery, somatic, and difficult to contain. By combining class analysis with trauma poetics and resistant clinical theory, I'm exploring how we might expand Marxist understandings of the mind-body, alienation, exploitation, and the family. I also critique new materialism's detachments from theories of class, labour, and production, and where they overlook metabolic rift. That's John Bellamy Foster's term for the ecological crisis and its impact on all life and societies. And I would say that in the fog of war nostalgia and mythologized imperialism, and in the abstractions of flattened ontologies, lives and truths are obliterated. This is a screenshot from an interactive map of known World War II bomb sites across London. The yellow splash marks the area of the St Helier estate in Coshalton, where my dad lived. And it's unclear how many bombs fell or how many were killed or injured. There was shared horror, but no space for trauma, kind of cultural blackout, where people still say, don't talk about the war. And silence was and is promoted as protection, but does it protect? The trauma transmits, and it is embodied in the militarized economy of post-war Britain, where civilian industries cloak the production of arms, radar, military communications, vehicles, services. I've here brought together David Gentleman's blood blot anti-war iconography for the Stop the War campaign with Wilfred Owen's poem Dulce et Decorum Est, which suggests that if people who wage war could see or hear what he had seen and heard, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie, dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori. It is sweet and decorous, noble, I suppose, sweet and noble to die for your country. So these processes, the transcription, reflection, inscription, drawing, are becoming transmutations which generate visual poetry, artifacts of embodied memory and radical witnessing.
Kingston càng
They
thích nhau rồi.
What's happening? Somebody's unmuted or? Hello?
Don't worry, someone unmuted, but I've muted them, don't worry.
Okay, thank you. I'll carry on. Generating visual poetry, artifacts of embodied memory and radical witnessing. They shape a space in which family trauma may be seen as socially situated, historically located, and politically meaningful. And what I'm going to do now is very quickly share a very short little slideshow that I've made for my dad. So stop sharing that. Stop sharing! Where's the little thing?
Don't worry, you've stopped sharing your slides.
I have. Oh, good. Okay, right. I'm going to show a very short little slide now. Thank you, Dan. I've got Dan there helping me. Okay, so now I'm going to show this little slideshow that I've made for my dad. That's all I'll say about it, I think. You'll see. Share. And want to get it slider and big. There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.